Hello, Internet! Welcome to episode 333 of the Assorted Calibers podcast. The Second Amendment podcast is a little bit for everyone. I'm Weird Beard, and tonight we are having an ACP roundtable, and I am chuckling because Xander has greatly edited the show notes. Xander is not joining us, but joining tonight is, of course, she is very here in spirit. There is, of course, the greatest hostess the world could ever want, Erin Paulette. How you doing, Erin?
You ever have a day where you work for hours and yet you have nothing to show for it? Hi, that's me.
That is all too many days.
Yeah, I mean, what I was doing was necessary, but it's just really discouraging after an entire afternoon of work to go, I can't prove that I did anything.
Yeah.
How about you, David? Did you accomplish something today?
Yeah, I worked at the store for 5 hours, and I did some sales and some.
Did you sell anything cool?
That's good.
One guy, he did buy Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0 10 millimeter with the ported barrel and vented slide directly from the factory.
Nice. You want?
Oh, it's nice pistol.
And how's the trigger pull? It's because that's got the dingus trigger now. That's
the 2.0 dingus trigger, which is quite nice.
Yeah, because I always talk about the fact that M&Ps have shitty triggers, relatively speaking. They're fine, but
the 1.0 absolutely correct. The 2.0 much better trigger.
Well, the 2.0 with the segmented trigger was better, but still,
the
still well behind.
Was better, but not great. But the dingus trigger, you barely notice the dingus.
So for those of us who aren't regulars on Handgun Radio, what is the dingus trigger?
Hold on a second, I'll pull up an image.
It's like a Glock trigger where you get the little baby trigger on the inside of the trigger.
Oh, okay.
The trigger you pull before the trigger you pull. Yo, dog, I heard you like triggers. Oddball, how are you doing?
Oh, my day was highly productive, just not actually doing anything that I intended to do today, which means I have a lot to do at work tomorrow.
Please tell me you built a siege engine.
No, but I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, Oddball, I will have to say, my daughter has gotten absolutely deadly with these flying rubber chickens that you guys. I was sitting on the couch playing a game on my phone, and she shot me in the face at very, very high speed.
Nice.
And I mean, you're like, I'm not even mad. I'm impressed.
I'm not. Well, they're like soft, gooey rubber, so like it's really kind of like a projectile version of a dead blow hammer, in the fact that like it hits hard but not sharp. Yeah. And so like it just bopped my head back, and I knew I'd been hit, but it didn't really hurt.
So if you were to create a siege machine, Oddball, what would you build?
Probably a trebuchet.
Good call. That's what I would build.
Classic.
Although ballistas are fun,
but this is the standard version of the M&P 2.0 10 millimeter, but it has the same trigger, so you can see there's that little bit poking out in front of the trigger face.
Yeah, the schmeckle.
The schmeckle's the whole thing, but
that's the dingus. Erin, you are definitely on fire tonight.
Okay, I mean, I'm not going to argue with the Jew. I just thought, based on my understanding of what a schmeckle was, that would fit the little safety thing on the trigger.
Basically, a schmeckle is a small penis.
Yes.
So the whole trigger would be the schmeckle, and the dingus would be the What is
The important thing is, David, what is the Yiddish word for foreskin?
Snip.
Cut here.
Not my problem.
Oh, I found a picture of. It didn't have the red dot mounted, but this is basically the gun the fellow bought. Is very nice.
Oh, that is cool. And it's a performance center one.
Yeah, and the barrel is ported on the top, so right in front of the front sight.
And please tell me he's a pig hunter.
I don't know. We didn't talk too much about that. But he and his friend were basically leaving from the store and going to the range to try it out.
That is the correct solution.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, that's externally dimensions same as the M&P 45, but holds a couple more rounds for the magazine size.
Yep, 15 plus 1. Someday one will be mine. Oh, stump puller.
Someday you'll live in free America.
Yeah.
Or free America will come to me.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
I mean, statistically speaking, one of those is much more likely than the other.
Yes.
Although the news about Illinois
Yes.
was quite pleasing.
Yep. So shall we start getting to our news? But yeah, we're having a round table. We're
We're doing the show now.
There's an absolute pile of news going on, and pretty much per the ACP tradition, if there is a spree shooting, we start the show off with that just to get it out of the way. And this one not an American event. The again, when politicians say that spree shootings are a uniquely American experience, no,
they're lying.
Yeah, no, they're not. Mm-hmm. So there was a shooting. There's not a lot known about this, which kind of surprises me because this literally happened the day after we recorded the last show. So I would assume that by now we would have a pretty good idea of what's going on, which either says to me that...
I have a theory.
Please, Erin.
So even though it was a shooting at a school, it was not a school for children. It was an adult education center.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that they've said across multiple articles is this is where immigrants learn to speak Swedish. And in a different article, I found that one of the victims was named as Bassam al-Shela, and he had specifically been studying at the Institute to improve his Swedish. I cannot prove this. It's just a gut feeling, but I feel like this school was targeted because the perpetrator wanted to kill immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
I was not sure when I first heard the story. My assumption was either immigrant did the shooting or immigrants were the victim of the shooting. And then as more details came out, that I came to the same conclusion.
Yeah, the shooter whom we will not name because they are just simply an asshole, but
well, they're a dead asshole too.
Yes.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And but they so they at least did one thing right. But for other people, if you want us not to be disparaging you, eat the bullet first.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And all you have to do is not murder. What a concept.
Yes,
exactly.
And
we're not asking a lot.
But the shooter's name is an extremely Swedish name. So yeah, and let's see, the weapons used. There was a bunch, and it's one of those like I'm always kind of curious with when there's like a pile of guns that the person had. There was a Ruger 1022. There was a pump action Winchester and a Browning BAR.
The hunting rifle, not the World War II light automatic weapon.
Yeah. And so, and of course, I get a wonder about the BAR just because, and again, David's 100% correct. If you're not familiar with the hunting BAR, it has absolutely nothing to do with the World War II light machine gun. Was it even designed by John Browning?
Yes, it was designed by John Browning for use in World War I. It was held back for the big spring offensive in 1919, which never happened because the Germans surrendered. It was designed for walking fire or marching fire.
Yeah, no, but I'm actually talking about the hunting version.
Oh, the hunting version? I don't believe so.
Yeah, I don't think so.
It is not. Designed by Marcel Oerlinger and Bruce Warren Browning. Okay, so it was one of the Brownings.
So it was designed by Browning,
Yes.
just not John Moses.
Yes. But the point that I'm saying is this is very much a very, very classy hunting rifle and what you would think of as a hunting rifle. But it is semi-auto. And one key factor is that the magazines on these things are very small
and awkward as heck. And I edited my speech there for you, Weird.
Yes.
But awkward as heck, because if I remember correctly with the Browning BAR, is it has a hinged floor plate that folds down and the small box magazine is attached to the hinged floor plate, making it nearly impossible without modifying the firearm to have an extended magazine capacity.
I think some of them are actually I don't know, because I'm looking at it right now, and
I mean that may have been simply one particular iteration, but that's the one I'm most familiar with.
So I'm looking at the Browning website right now, and they've got the BAR Mark III that has a detachable magazine.
Yeah, they all had detachable magazines. It was the manner in which they detached.
Oh,
yes. So I'm looking here at the specification, and magazine typed hinge floor plate with detachable box.
Huh. It's almost like I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh well, I'm just surprised because it's very clearly not a blind magazine, but it's got that big like trigger thingamabobber there in front of the trigger guard, which appears to be the release. But I think
they do have the BAR Mark III DBM.
That's okay. I didn't specify DBM, but I said BAR Mark III, and it has a detachable magazine.
Right.
I said that.
Yes. Unfortunately, the confusion came in because they are all BAR Mark IIIs, and they all technically have detachable magazines. But you were talking of the specifically standard detachable box magazine, and I didn't catch that, and I apologize.
Okay.
And according to this, it looks like they all have a magazine capacity. This was in 30-06, as if it matters, but they all have a capacity of 4 rounds in the magazine. So possibly there's a 4+1, and so it's one of those like. This is, again, we'll see. I mean, Aaron's got that version, which also looks like it's a slightly longer magazine.
Yeah.
Does it
10?
Yeah, it's a
10 round.
Yep.
It's a traditional detachable box magazine, and I believe that they did have a larger capacity version of that at some point.
So okay, so in theory, maybe this guy had. They're also very expensive.
I don't believe that particular version is available in Europe to non-law enforcement or military.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so that leads on to, but either way, the person went into, this was essentially a school for adults.
Mm-hmm.
I assume this is like where you would go to get your GED, but also this probably is for things like English as a second language courses and all that. And certainly I didn't see an extensive look of the victims, but I did hear, I did read a few stories of people who were involved in this, and many of them had very non-Swedish names. So your theory does seem to hold some water. But it does sound like another one of these instances of by the time the police showed up, the gunman did not engage with the police in any way, shape, or form. They just ended their own life.
And if they'd taken that step first, it would have been much better.
Correct. But of course, we got to go forward and say, again, this is Sweden. This is not America. They have very, very tight gun control laws. It is a privilege, not a right. You need police permission to own firearms. This person was not known to police, and had a valid gun permit, and all of that. but essentially they are saying that they are going to crack down on gun control laws, specifically to restrict access to semi-automatic or military-style firearms such as the AR-15, which, again, why I spent so much time talking about the Browning BAR hunting rifle, in the fact that, geez, that seems awfully convenient and awfully shoehorned, because he also had a pump-action shotgun, which is a quintessential FOID gun, and the Ruger 1022, which is the do-everything, not assault weapon gun. So, and I suspect that certainly if you gave me those three guns to go do some damage, then that would the BAR would probably be one of the last ones I would reach for. That's
right, unless you're doing damage from an elevated position.
Yes, yeah, that it is actually would be a.
If you're going to play Charles Whitman, that would be your first choice.
Yeah, they do make, they're very, very accurate. They're very good for mounting scopes on,
and in 30-06 it would reach out.
Yeah, they're not great for close quarters work. So it's certainly not like inside doors, clearing hallways.
No.
So yeah, but again,
shotgun would be the primary choice.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So this is again the one of those instances of they were already ready. They were already poised with this, and now they're
and what are they doing now, Weird?
They're looking to ban more guns.
I just want to point this out because it stuck to me, and of course I've got the image of got to pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers here. They're talking about I guess it would be per capita. I'm not sure, because they say for every 100 people. So in Sweden there are 23 legally owned guns for every 100 people, compared to 5 per 100 in the UK, 10 in Denmark, 32 in Finland, and 120 in the USA. USA.
Reported.
That's fair.
And that doesn't count 3D printed guns.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've got a couple now that feds have no idea exist.
Yeah. Yep. And depending on how they got, if those numbers are based on NICS checks, there are a number of states where if you have a carry permit, you are not subject to the NICS check.
Hello.
Yeah, something we're hoping to eventually get here, but...
Well, I mean, you've got ticks. I know, aptly named, but...
Most honestly named government program, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, does it not work like that in Tennessee?
Nope, everyone gets the check.
Pity.
We have law enforcement officers who come in to buy Blue Label Glocks, and they get the ticks check too.
Well, at least it's fair for, and it sucks for everyone all around. It's like, okay, sure.
Yeah. I'll agree with you that it's fair in that respect, but it also, you go through the whole effort of getting the enhanced carry permit, still should be something.
You can you can carry within 1,000 feet of a school.
I mean, what they don't know won't hurt us.
Well, the thing is, I saw a video sometime last week, and I don't know if I can find it again, but it was something like how, this is a trap for people who are in constitutional carry states. And if you're constitutionally carrying, you can't carry a gun within 1,000 feet of a school. But if you've got a concealed carry permit, then you can.
Right.
And so it was, that's interesting. So, yet another reason to get that carry permit.
I mean, I encourage people to do that for a variety of reasons, including that and traveling out of state.
Yeah, reciprocity for nothing else.
Yeah.
So yeah, either way, this is yet another just line of the no, like when they say common sense gun control, no, that's a bad faith argument.
Gun control is a bad faith argument.
Yes, absolutely. It all the gun control that they had pumped into Sweden to prevent this, and this person with very, very pedestrian guns, but guess what? Because he was the only guns in town, was able to kill. It was killed 10 people, and again, as soon as cops showed up, did not fight with the cops, did not exchange gunfire, just checked themselves out. And so this is one of those. That should say a lot. Is the imagine if one of these people in the school had a gun.
So my topic actually dovetails off of that, because this is an example where we don't have to imagine. So last week in Texarkana, which is a place in Texas right next to the Arkansas border, hence the name, a 15-year-old entered the regional airport with, and all it says right here is a high-power rifle and a handgun, walked up to the front counter and demanded a plane. I mean, so the kid is 15 years old, obviously not a whole lot of foresight. I don't know what he was thinking. He demanded the gun, and he...
Demanded a plane with a gun.
He had a gun and he demanded a plane?
Yes, I'm sorry. I said he demanded a gun, didn't he? Yeah, I'm looking over the article as I'm talking, and sometimes my mouth works independently of my brain. Okay, yeah, so... He's demanding a plane from the person at the, aviation service counter, and he apparently was carrying on an empty chamber, because he chambered around. And as he did that, the person to whom he made the demand was able to flee to a back office and call the police. And so that was good.
Yep.
And then he walked onto the flight line. But as this was happening, there was a local pilot who saw what was happening. And so he didn't have his gun with him. He actually had to run back to his truck, get his gun, and confronted the gunman as he, according to the article, breached security onto the airfield, which doesn't sound like it was very secure. And he ordered the teen to get on the ground. And the teen complied and was disarmed before the police officers arrived and took him into custody. It was also found that he had a shotgun in his vehicle. And so we don't know what the teen was thinking. Hopefully we'll find out. But if you've got someone who is demanding a plane at gunpoint, I don't know about you, but having lived through 9/11, I immediately think of something like that. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
I mean, demanding something at gunpoint is bad anyway, but you want a plane? No good can come of this. And so here we have an example of literally a good guy with a gun stopping a bad guy with a gun, and no one got hurt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was clearly making some bad life decisions, but staring down the barrel of another gun made him change some of his choices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One other thing that we don't know, but we can assume with fairly strong confidence is that the 15-year-old did not have an AR.
Because they would have said so in the article, right?
Yes.
I agree.
I thought I read one where it did say that it was an AR, but...
I mean, all long guns are ARs and all handguns are Glocks, according to the media.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But it is sometimes telling what they report.
By what they don't report?
Yes, or what they don't report by how they report. Or, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Words are hard.
Yeah, and so the final thing of this article really has me scratching my head, because... The airport's director says the airport security plan worked how it was supposed to. Sir, your security plan was to call the police and hope for the best. And if it hadn't been for a pilot with a gun, things could have been so much worse. So this is CYA in action right here. And then he says, but they would like to find ways to improve it further. If you can shave 10 to 15 seconds off, that can mean more lives saved in the future. I mean, you can't shave times off of police response time because that's not in your power. I don't know, maybe have some airport security? Maybe have, I don't know, a fence or something? Because, I mean, when a 15-year-old, admittedly with a gun, but can just walk onto the airfield, you have a problem.
Yeah.
Yes, if the tip of the spear of your security plan is a completely uninvolved pilot who just took matters into his own hands, yeah, your security plan kind of doesn't exist.
Yeah. And it kind of also reminded me of, was it Pearl River? But there was another school shooting many years ago, or attempted school shooting, I believe. A student showed up with a gun, and a teacher ran out to his car, retrieved his personally owned firearm, and subdued the.
Yes, I'm trying to remember. I think that was Appalachian Law School.
Yes.
Maybe. Okay. Pearl River is a different one then.
Yeah, I believe that was Appalachian Law School. John Law wrote extensively about that in The Bias Against Guns, specifically because it was absolutely a perfect news story, and the bottom line is very, very few news outlets picked it up, and a bunch of them covered it as the principal shooting the student shooting other students. That a whole bunch of stories got it wrong where it didn't sound like things went as well as they did. I would also go on with another one. There was a event at the University of Georgia where some friends were hanging out in an off-campus apartment, and a few guys broke in and were holding them at gunpoint, and I think they robbed them. And then they started talking about the fact that they were going to shoot them, so there weren't any witnesses. And spoiler alert: the one of the people at this party was a Marine ROTC student, and he had a gun stashed in his bag, pulled it out, and interestingly enough, he ended up shooting. I'm trying to remember if he shot all of them, but he definitely hit at least, I think there were 3 robbers, and shot like 2 of the 3 of them, and none of them died. But one of the other students in the apartment was injured. I don't know if they were hit with something or got a bullet fragment, building material fragment or something. But one of the people was also injured in this, and almost no news stories covered it. Like, it should have been a national news story, just how everything laid out on that. But the news doesn't want to cover it because it's not the type of story they like.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's see. Actually, speaking of stories they don't like, but meanwhile they did, like, this story is, just made me laugh. Actually, a friend of the show with a common name sent this one to me, and it's from the New York Times, and it's how YouTube is changing American gun culture. And interestingly enough, it's not behind a paywall, which most New York Times stories are. It's talking about, YouTubers and influencers in essentially GunTube, and talking about the rise of it and how it's no longer older white men, but there's a lot of younger people and people of color entering into it, and many of them are motivated by interest in video games and those sort of things. And yeah,
well, up until recently, we had a Tactical Girlfriend who was not only a trans gun tuber, but was also to the political left, which is something we don't see very often. And I discovered her during the lockdown, and I haven't watched all of her videos, but the ones that I saw at the beginning, she was making them really easy for people to understand. It was very much so you bought a gun for the first time, and here's what you need to know in order to use it safely, and I thought that was really cool. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to talk about her politics or anything after that. It's just, in those initial months, she had a voice that no one else had. And
I will say that as someone who knows a lot of left of center gun owners, there's certainly a very, very high probability of people who grew up knowing, hearing the NRA described as the National Republican Association and being a right-wing group. Hopefully that has softened in the past and then hardened again, and hopefully it will be softening again now with all the changes front. Again, vote for John Richardson and go check out No Lawyers, Only Guns and Money for his recommendations of other fine people on the NRA ballot if you're a voting member. But
I'm working on my ballot now.
Yeah, I don't think I've got mine yet.
Yeah, I was listening to that. Actually, that was the last episode I listened to. Was one with that interview, and I looked at the site, and there were a couple of people on there that no, definitely not voting for them. I'm not going to name names during the recording, but
yeah, fair enough.
If you look, I'm sure you'll be able to figure out who I mean.
You know, I'm going to fall on a grenade here. Don't vote for Wellesley. Don't.
That's
who I wasn't going to name.
I don't care. Fair. He already hates me. He has no power. I don't care what he says or does. Don't vote for him. The man has no moral principle. He is a windsock.
Yeah, we've talked about Willis Lee's backing of Wayne LaPierre and getting
which is
in
the
front.
Part that confuses me why he's being recommended by that group, since he did support LaPierre.
Yeah, that I don't know.
But he's not categorized with some of the others.
Because he turned hard when they turned on him,
or when the wind shifted.
Right. Yeah. Take your pick. But yeah, and one of the things with the gun YouTubers is there's a lot of them that are still very much showing safe practice, but are also having fun.
Like
one of
the things I liked about Kristen Joy Weiss.
Yeah.
I watched a Kentucky Ballistics video earlier this evening, where it's a bit off kilter, but he's also very much observing all the rules. And he's definitely talked about when things have gone wrong.
Yeah, if you need someone to talk about when gun incidents go sideways, he is the man.
Yeah.
On a lighter note, Kentucky Ballistics teamed up with the slow motion guys, or the slow-mo guys.
Yes.
Who are two British filmmakers, I guess, YouTubers. And
chaps is the word you're looking for, Aaron.
Blokes. And
weird chaps are the assless pants that you wear on a horse.
And so there were at least 3, possibly more, of them doing in like such extravagantly slow motion. And they actually noticed something which they dubbed the Kentucky effect, which was when a projectile hits the replica skull, it hits it with enough force that there's a burst of light because it's igniting something. And they it penetrated the skull, and then as it hit the back of the skull, they saw the light again. And so they dubbed it the Kentucky effect. I don't know if that name is going to stick, but I just thought that was really cool.
Yeah, you frequently see in people shooting ballistics gelatin is the bullet is going fast enough and is hot enough that it is vaporizing some of that gelatin, and then it creates the temporary wound channel. So the gelatin, I mean, the thing just blows up like a balloon for a couple of frames. You never notice it seeing it shot, but it blows up like a balloon. And then as that temporary wound channel collapses, it actually acts like a diesel engine and forms compression and actually ignites those gelatin vapors.
Yeah, they had one of those as well.
And there's also the you can learn a lot about history of both the firearms and history in general with folks like CN Arsenal and Forgotten Weapons and Bloke on the Range. And I think it was Brandon Herrera that actually has talked about, YouTube is going to have to, if they want to get rid of us, they're going to have to actually kick us off, because part of it is YouTube's where the eyeballs are, and we're wanting to get seen by more than just the devoted followers. Not that they don't like the devoted followers, but they want to be able to reach out to other folks and show that you can have these things and you can have fun with them and not be dangerous and not be a headline.
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, when Brandon demonstrated the homemade gun that assassinated Shinzo Abe, that was pushing that line a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, he actually, they specifically stated that loading cartridges is the wrong thing, and he actually handmade the black powder that they used for it, and it was a pretty blatant violation. So that was actually where he went afoul with that one, and he openly went, no, my bad.
Yeah, he actually stated, he actually stated what the recipe for black powder was, and two, there was a part of that showed the BOM of items that you would need to buy to build that pipe gun.
David, don't you dare try to apply any rationale to it. The fact that no. Brandon almost killed himself with that gun blowing up. It was not at all part of YouTube's concern.
No, not at all. That was our concern.
It was how dare he show a safe and easy recipe for black powder?
Yeah, because you can't find that anywhere on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's also with YouTube, and it's not just with firearms. It is just that's where we notice it the most. Is their community standards are applied similar to Facebook's, which is not erratic at best, and they definitely have a particular affinity for screwing with certain sites. I mean, just hearing some of the stuff that Othais and May have talked about with C and Arsenal, which how could that be any more mundane in their firearms handling?
I mean, at one point they actually kicked Hickok 45 off the site.
Yes,
and did it happen a couple of times?
I almost want to say that
once. I don't know if it happened. There was one that happened either this year or late last year, but I think there was one earlier too.
Yeah, there was absolutely one earlier.
But I
think you're right. There was another one that happened recently.
With C and Arsenal, every so often, one of their videos, for reasons they don't understand, will go viral, and they'll get a whole bunch of new subscribers, and then YouTube will say, no, that can't be real, and remove a good chunk of them, sometimes more than they got.
Oh, that sounds like what's going on with Tex and the Black Pants Legion.
Yeah,
and sometimes including May.
Yes, who is the channel admin.
Oh, jeez.
They unsubscribed May from C and Arsenal. So it wasn't just the recent new additions, it was they just randomly grabbed a bunch of folks. I've been unsubscribed from C and Arsenal at least twice. So they have some issue with C and Arsenal more than some of the other GunTuber sites. And I don't understand why C and Arsenal particularly has gained their ire. But
they're popular.
Not nearly as much as some of the other GunTubers. Their membership and their viewer numbers, not anywhere near as high. They have a relatively small, loyal group of autistic followers, but not to the extent of, say, Brandon or Demolition Ranch or some of the others. So it's very strange. But I'd be interested to see with some of the others, like Ian has the Weapons and War streaming channel that he started, and the unsubscribed guys have Pepperbox that they've started.
Mm-hmm.
But as I think Oddball, was it you who said YouTube is where the eyes are?
Yeah. And
so it's an uphill battle to get people to watch them anywhere else.
Well, and especially if it's the two that you mentioned, if it's a subscription thing,
right?
Getting folks that have never heard of you or seen you before to sign up for a subscription, is pretty much not going to happen.
And there's also a reason why ACP has bonus content on the Patreon rather than we'll
Right.
just make and ironically enough, all the bonus content has less editing involved in it, less production. So you would think it would make the most sense to say, I put the one that I put the most effort on behind the paywall. But in fact, it's just podcasts really got started off as just being things that were brought out, free for the world to see. And so early on in the time when podcasts were taking off, they were established, but it's still fairly early in things. A bunch of channels tried to go, tried to put their shows behind a paywall, and it did not go well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, just to go back to my point about the alternate channels, the one that seems to be doing better, but still not anywhere close to YouTube, is Player, formerly Utreon, which is, the videos that are on there are free to watch. And like with Patreon, you can pay and then you get the added content. And from what I've heard, the creators on Player actually keep a larger percentage than they do from Patreon.
And just about all of the gun tubers, if you talk to them, every one of them will have had the experience of people saying, well, you really need to be on Rumble as well, on Rumble.
And nobody watches Rumble.
And their response is, I am on Rumble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you just answered your own question as to why I'm still on YouTube.
Yep.
And I will say right now, like in the in my going into the various anti-gun YouTube channels to find audio for the Weird Audio Fisks, I will often find myself in one of them and realize, they left the comments open.
Fools.
I'll leave a short but plucky comment there. And I have made some friends in those comment sections. Some of those friends are so friendly that I've actually gone like deep into the bowels of YouTube with the no. I want to report this person. Like, this person is making threats against me. Like, maybe even if you can respond, I would like to get some information on them so we can send a cease and desist. And YouTube doesn't care.
No.
No.
Nope.
My
whole
plucky
pin on
comment,
this entire segment is YouTube doesn't care.
Yeah, my plucky comment might vanish from one of those. I don't know if it's the Brady or Everytown or Giffords that's doing the deleting, or if it's YouTube doing the deleting. But no, the person sitting there making threats at me is staying. So that's nice.
Oh, speaking of Giffords, that the couple of Twixes that Giffords put up where they left the comments open.
Yes,
a bunch of folks had fun with that, and the ratio was quite wide. Between the number of likes, the number of comments, and the comments were almost all calling them out.
The frog of shame.
Pardon?
The frog of shame. Someone posts a picture, and it's like, if the frog of shame gets more likes than your post does, your post sucks.
And whenever I see that in one of those, I always like the frog of shame, no matter how many people put it up, because I don't know if it's an individual or an aggregate. But YouTube sucks for gun tubers, and that's unlikely to change.
Well, if they keep getting like New York Times articles talking about how these diverse and both politically and racially and age-wise people are flocking onto YouTube, and how good it is that there's gun content on YouTube, maybe. I'm not going to hold
I'm more likely to see it get worse because YouTube will crack down even harder on them.
Yeah,
that's my expectation.
That is true. But but I was saying too, we got sidetracked on the whole NRA thing, and Erin mentioned Tactical Girlfriend, and absolutely, I have met like a ton of people who are like, oh no, I don't trust the NRA, I don't like the NRA. Here in Massachusetts, we get it says NRA basic pistol is the required course for the time being. That's going to change. I don't want to take an NRA course. Is there, what are the alternatives? And people will point like the liberal gun club instructors and that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
So yeah,
And there are private companies that have basically taken the NRA basic handgun and scraped the NRA off it.
correct.
Mhm.
And so yeah, but so many people have want to avoid that. And the NRA is the big dog in the world when it comes to basic firearms instruction. And
Yeah.
so if you've got
Or
some
the-
people that are avoiding the NRA but do own guns, where to go now? YouTube's a pretty darn good place to look. And YouTube is actively trying to throttle that on the where can I go to get some safety training and understand, where can you learn the basic 4 rules?
Yep.
All right, who wants to grab this next one?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, since I'm the resident, I am not a lawyer.
As opposed to the resident, almost a doctor.
Yeah. So let's see. I'm trying to remember where this was, but a judge recently, and actually in the ruling, it was quite clear that the judge was pretty reluctant and not real happy to come to this conclusion, which I deeply appreciate the judge actually going, I don't like this, but this is the law and this is the way SCOTUS has this is the way SCOTUS has told me I'm supposed to determine things. In the case United versus Peterson,
This is Mississippi, by the way.
yeah, thank you. He was caught having a machine gun that was not registered, and the judge declared that, well, according to the directions that SCOTUS has given us from Bruen, machine guns are. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. Yeah. The link is to the wrong one.
Is it?
Or I pulled up the suppressor one, the next one.
They're right next to each other. I did the same thing.
But the judge ruled that nope, machine guns are protected under the Second Amendment, and the essentially ban on machine guns is unconstitutional.
So there's a really great line in here that I want to address.
Mhm.
And the judge, okay. The judge, as you said, he hates Bruen and he hates making this ruling, but I've got to applaud him for sticking to his principles. He says that, talking about Bruen and the historical tradition of prohibiting, and he says, the ultimate problem for the government then is this. Although machine guns are dangerous, it does not explain how machine guns are unusual, because Bruen allows for the prohibition of dangerous and unusual weapons. He goes on to say...
And being the key word there.
Yeah. He goes on to say that the defendant says that there were more than 740,000 machine guns lawfully possessed. The government has not pointed to any other number. The court accepts it as true.
Yes.
Hey, feds, you did this to yourself. So concluding here, yeah. The government presents no argument or explanation as to why such a large figure is somehow not common. 750,000 of any kind of firearm is plainly widespread. And so under the New Bruen standard, the government must prove that its restriction is consistent with the historical tradition of firearm regulation. The government found this out the hard way in Morgan, and go on, and so it's worth a read, because you can tell this guy is gritting his teeth at every point, but he's following the law and he's showing his work.
Yeah, and I deeply appreciate that we have a judge that, I don't like it, but yeah, this is the law. And just to correct myself, I cited the wrong case earlier. This is United States versus Justin Bryce Brown, if anybody wants to look it up.
But this is a perfect place for a Milton Friedman quote. We will not solve our problems by electing the right people. We will only solve our problems by making it politically profitable for the wrong people to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, here's the bad news. What does this mean for you and me right now?
Ooh, I can answer that question.
Erin, what's the answer?
The answer is not a thing, because the ruling only applies to Mr. Brown, and even though there's going to be challenges to this, and this is happening in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is gun-friendly, but they've ruled in the past that machine guns are both dangerous and unusual. So it'll be challenged, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere. So don't rush out and try and buy an M4 at your gun store, because you can't.
Right. And before people start screaming about, well, I just praised the judge, and then he went and did something like this and said, well, it only counts to this one person. This is a district court dealing with a criminal case. That is the standard way it happens. It really, you're looking at, to actually get something struck down is unconstitutional on a grand scale. You're pretty much always, you're almost always looking at a civil lawsuit as opposed to a criminal lawsuit, and you are absolutely always looking at the appellate level or higher. So it's no surprise, and it's keeping pretty much standard with having it with having this ruling only affecting the defendant. But it's nice to see at least somewhere we're getting some victories, and hopefully this will continue. Unfortunately, things aren't all so rosy. The other lawsuit that I originally cited, the United States versus Peterson case, was dealing with silencers or suppressors. If I called them silencers, Maxim called them silencers.
Yep, the man who invents it gets to name it.
That's right.
Unless it's a hammer spring, evidently.
Yeah, but you don't get bent out of shape when someone refers to a suppressor or a silencer as the other name.
I mean, honestly speaking, I use both of them interchangeably.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas mainspring and hammer spring gets you all torqued up, so we have to use it.
Because one of them is wrong.
Again, we have to use it. But yeah, I was a little confused by this. When I first saw it, I thought, oh, yay, they're not firearms. That means the ATF can't regulate them. And apparently I am completely not.
You are completely wrong on that.
Yeah. Like I said, that was my first impression was like, oh, they're not firearms. Then they're not going to be no.
It'd be nice, but no, it doesn't work that way. So the short of it is, as David alluded to, the 3-judge appellate court, which I'm trying to remember which circuit was in, and I'm not seeing it in this article. This is the Fifth Circuit, which is what I was thinking. So the Fifth Circuit isn't always great for us. Yeah. This panel determined that no, suppressors are not firearms. They're firearm accessories.
Which is technically correct, which is therefore the best kind of correct.
Unfortunately for us, that's true. And it's, unfortunately, I have a hard time arguing with that because, as they stated, it is not essential for a firearm to function.
I mean,
unlike, say, a magazine, which has been debated this on a similar line.
Right. A magazine is required for a firearm to function.
Firearm to operate other than as a single shot.
as
a semi-automatic is designed to function.
Right. And I believe there have been several courts that have ruled that no, a magazine is an integral part of the firearm.
Right. I mean, but there are a number of other parts that firearms will function quite well without.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that an extractor or an ejector is a firearm. It is not necessary for a firearm.
Especially with some of the straight blowback 32s.
Right.
Which have neither.
But to try to claim it is a mere accessory as opposed to part of the firearm is
right. That's where that analogy falls apart. Yeah.
Yeah. But unfortunately, it's difficult to make that argument with suppressors.
Right. It'd be like saying that a scope.
Right.
A firearm that has iron sights and has a scope mounted, the scope is not an essential part of that firearm. It's an accessory.
And since it's not an essential part, then it's not it's not a firearm. Therefore it's not a weapon. Therefore it's not protected by the Second Amendment.
So I have a question, and I'm not trying to be a smartass. I'm not trying to be a gotcha.
Yeah.
But 26 U.S. Code Section 5845 defines a firearm, and I'm going to post the link so you can read it too. But it specifically says, for the purposes of this chapter, a firearm means, and they start listing them, and entry 7 is any silencer.
Ooh.
I believe that's what this ruling is changing.
That is interesting.
Oh, and that is part of the NFA. I don't know if that was brought up in arguments that by the law that the law defines it as a firearm.
Yeah, because that would have been a really good thing for the defense attorney to bring up, to say, well, actually, Your Honors, according to federal law, it is.
Yeah, which, well, law, the definitions given in law trump reality.
Mm-hmm.
So. Right, and since the definition in this law is that a silencer falls under firearm.
So what I'm getting at here is, and I'm not trying to do a gotcha, but I think that someone might be able to take this piece of law, unless I'm missing something critical because I'm not a lawyer, and they could go, okay, you ruled this, but U.S. Code says this, so these don't match up, Judge. We got to fix it. And there's the possibility that something good could come of this, is really what I'm getting at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd have to, and yeah, that because they're talking about it being an integral part of a firearm, and in the law, at least for the purposes of that chapter, which is which conveniently I believe is the one at issue anyways, that a silencer is clearly listed as a firearm as falling under that definition.
Well, we shall see, because again, this is a lower court ruling, and so there's going to be more challenges, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. Oh, and here's we alluded to this at the beginning of the show, and this is like just breaking. I just heard about this before we started recording. This is
Matthew that shared that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Was that Matthew from Geeks, Gadgets, and Guns that shared that?
Yes, it was. And also, I have
our friend's show.
Yeah, and I have heard. And I got an email from the Second Amendment Foundation a little earlier, and that's what they were talking about. But yes, but there's a ruling. This is coming out of Illinois. The ruling has deemed that the firearms owner identification card is unconstitutional.
More specifically, looking at the article, it doesn't seem to say overall, but for mere possession within your own home.
Mm-hmm.
So it still might be.
I don't believe the FOID is a carry permit like it is in Massachusetts. I think
Correct.
you have to get an entirely separate card to carry.
Correct.
It's a permit to own and a permit to buy.
Correct.
Because one time I was visiting a friend in Illinois, and all I wanted to do was buy ammunition, and they wouldn't let me because I didn't have a FOID.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Same thing happened to me when I was at a gun shop in Massachusetts many years ago.
Correct. And
I like this part at the end. Additionally, Judge Webb writes that any fee associated with exercising the core fundamental constitutional right of armed self-defense within the confines of one home violates the Second Amendment, specifically statutes, blah, 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 and finds those to be unconstitutional. So it'll be interesting if Judge Webb is judge at what level? It just says Judge Scott Webb. Is he a state judge or a district judge or?
It's a county judge. Because
county.
read more at, and so he's a judge at the county level.
So it's a pretty low level in the state to federal system.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's upheld as it goes up the line, that would be interesting because that would be a direct challenge to the New York State pistol permit scheme. You are not actually allowed to even touch a handgun in the state of New York without a license, and there are fees associated. So if this does go up the line and maintain, that would be an interesting potential future case.
I unfortunately for in that particular case, I would be surprised if this goes outside of the state legal system.
Oh, I agree. It's
it might go up to the state Supreme Court,
and they'll say no, we disagree.
But well, no, even assuming that the proper decision here prevails, I doubt it would go beyond the state Supreme Court to SCOTUS, and therefore it would remain in the confines of any precedents, etc. would remain in the confines of the state of Illinois.
Right.
That's
unless somebody brought another case in federal district court, I guess.
Right.
To start that train.
Right. That said, if the whole FOID card thing does properly die in Illinois, that would be a major win in of itself.
Oh, absolutely. And it would be another step forward for the residents of Illinois, and possibly something that could be used to model cases in other states with similar laws.
Yeah.
Not necessarily as precedent, but just as, hey, they used this argument, we can try that too.
Right.
But that is maybe short-lived, but I still would say good news. So thank you, Judge Webb.
Yes, I agree.
Then the next one, presidential actions, executive order.
Yeah, I tried to read this a couple of times and my eyes just crossed immedially.
And it's not that long.
No.
And it's honestly not that complicated.
We're going to review stuff for the last few years.
The real question is what is going to happen after that 30 days. So for those that don't know, one of the numerous executive orders that President Trump has signed recently is the Protecting Second Amendment Rights Executive Order, which is one of those things that might cause something to happen, but isn't actually doing anything in of itself of any impact.
Yeah, it's also, the title is much grander than what it actually purports to do.
Right. It's...
Well, reading the article, it sounds like the only thing they're obligated to do is generate a report.
Correct.
And I
only
have
for
thoughts. Yes,
And
David.
only for actions between January 2021 and January 2025.
Yes,
Yeah.
again, I have thoughts. Yeah, all presidential and agencies actions from January 2021 through January 2025, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, from 2021, you say. Interesting, because, I recall a certain ban which went into effect in 2019 that not only infringed upon the Second Amendment, but also deprived law-abiding people of their property without just compensation. A ban which was the result of a certain president demanding that the ATF interpret rules a certain way. Does anyone remember which president that was?
I'm a little
Taft?
foggy here, and why don't you remind me?
Yeah,
Was it Taft?
that was Trump. That was.
I was close.
Yeah, we had the 2017 thing in Las Vegas with the bump fire stock, and so
Which the FBI still doesn't admit happened.
okay.
The FBI was someone put a Freedom of Information Act request to the FBI about bump stocks used in criminal activity, and the FBI returned, to the best of our knowledge, a bump stock has not been used in any criminal action in the United States.
So kind of orthogonal to my point here. So what I'm getting at is, we had this tragedy, and Trump said, in consultation with the NRA, decided that, the bump stocks are machine guns and the ATF should ban them. And the ATF went and looked at the black letter law and said, no, they aren't. And Trump said, I don't care, do it anyway. And the ATF went, okay. So I have my doubts that Trump is going to do anything, because he's a New Yorker. And
Hey,
look, you're a former New Yorker. You're okay. But I mean, it's Trump says a lot of things.
oh my, yeah.
And what I've been saying to other people is, don't pay attention to what he says. Watch what he does.
Yeah.
And so, he's saying these things, and I'm just gonna wait and see what he does, because the other point I'm gonna make, because while I have the speaking conch, is okay. So he's telling Pam Bondi to do this. Now, Pam Bondi was the Attorney General of my state during the George Zimmerman debacle. Now, she didn't have anything specifically to do with it. She didn't prosecute Zimmerman, but she was the one in charge during that time. And maybe she was taking her orders from the governor. Maybe she thought it was a good idea, but not in parallel, but supporting this right after Parkland, which was a tragedy, don't get me wrong, but Trump is sitting there with Pam Bondi as they are crafting what I think was the first ERPO law, and Trump was supporting it. So, no, I don't trust Pam Bondi. I don't trust Trump to do us right by the Second Amendment. Those are my thoughts. If people have a problem with it, don't come at Weird. Don't come at anyone else. Come to me.
Oh, well, they'd have to come at me, too, because I agree with you 100%.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, I don't... As I've said to people, I don't like Donald Trump the person. I appreciate Donald Trump the wrecking ball, even though he might wreck some things I care about. But when it comes to the Second Amendment, I really don't trust anyone other than me, and I don't always trust me.
I'm going to be very interested in what happens.
Yeah. Is this just fluff to calm the Second Amendment supporters?
Mm-hmm.
Look, I'm doing something.
No, I mean, the good news is I do believe that he pretty much instantly got rid of the Department of Gun Safety.
Yes, he did that.
Oh yeah, like the White House Office of something or other.
Yeah.
The White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention. But yeah, I'm with you that he's going to have to do a lot to prove that he is actually the pro-gun candidate that he has claimed that he is.
Yeah, I what I would love is if Elon seems to be a lot more pro Second Amendment than Trump from some of the things that he's said. Again, words, but it would be wonderful if Elon spun off a Second Amendment version of Doge when it comes time to investigate ATF. That would
give
be
me hope.
Not that I trust him, but it would be interesting, if he has a group of 18 to 25-year-old Call of Duty players looking through the various firearms laws and how ATF is interpreting them.
I mean, to use your phrase from earlier, weaponized autism.
Yes. Best kind of autism.
Well, and I mean, really with some of this, I really hope that some things like at the very least the Shush Act and hopefully the Hearing Protection Act actually get passed and stuff like that, where we can actually start getting some of these laws off the books.
That would be nice. And that actually brings back to something else we've discussed previously, although I don't think tonight, is, these executive orders are great and all, but it needs to be encapsulated into law by going through Congress, the changes. Otherwise, the next president in the opposing party can just reverse them with their own executive orders.
Like we've seen happen.
Over and over and over again.
So I had to look this up because I'd never heard of the Shush Act before. I figured out what it was by context, but apparently it's because the government now loves its acronyms. Silencers help us save hearing. Act.
Yes.
I don't know whether I
Act.
hate acronyms or bacronyms more on a day-to-day basis. I really don't. But yeah.
So I'm sorry, Erin. I thought you guys had talked about it before. I believe that's the bill to clarify the legal definition of a silencer to specifically the serialized tube.
The tube would be the silencer, and the interior parts would just be parts.
Right. So that if you needed to replace a baffle or two, you can do that without being a class 3 shop. Or remember how you know how suppressors that use wipes are so awesome and great, but you have to replace the wipes on a regular basis, which are just rubber discs.
Yeah, basically plumber's gasket material.
Mm-hmm. You'd be able to do that, which is a lot saner interpretation of the definition of a silencer or suppressor than what the ATF is currently going with, which is it's the tube and every little bit that goes in it. And you have to account for all of that. And no, you can't replace it or work on it unless if you're a licensed manufacturer. Yeah.
And then there's and the Hearing Protection Act, I believe, is the one to remove suppressors from the NFA?
Correct. It'll still require you to go through a background check. It'll still legally treat them as firearms, but at least you would no longer have to do the tax stamp
or the $200 or for a trust.
Correct.
9-month wait. So, if the Hearing Protection Act passes and suppressors are moved off of the NFA and become treated just like any other firearm, that's going to be a crazy Wild West time in the suppressor world.
How many are you getting, David?
Yes.
my bank account would be so much smaller.
Yeah.
And my 3D printer would be going burr.
Oh yeah, that would be another thing, is if they are firearms like any other firearm, then it would be perfectly legal to manufacture them yourself. And not only do I have a 3D printer, I have a metal lathe. And I have access to a Home Depot and a Lowe's. As long as I
Don't go into their
make
plumbing supply section because that's an unlicensed federal firearms dealer.
That's correct.
That's constructive intent. If I go into the plumbing department, it's constructive intent. If friend of the show with common name goes into a plumbing department, it's also intent, constructive intent. And I have intent to construct, but only legally. But yeah, so it's going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Going to be interesting. Speaking of interesting, the next one with Everytown's interpretation of the executive order.
Yes, this is the breaking. Trump signed a sweeping executive order calling for Attorney General Pam Bondi to investigate, quote, ongoing infringements of the Second Amendment. We reject any effort of the Trump administration to gut our gun laws. And it says Rob, because Rob Romano is signed up for the Everytown mailing list. And he says, if they get rid of the Second Amendment infringements, we won't have any gun laws left, which is kind of true.
Yeah.
Did you see my reply in that Twix?
Yeah. You did the Tony
the
Stark.
Avengers. That is exactly the plan.
Mm-hmm.
And Mad Mike posted a picture of him at the range with his 81 millimeter mortar, functional mortar.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Playing the home game. But yeah, Everytown's and Gifford's hot takes are particularly interesting. What was it? Gifford's the other day we were talking about earlier mentioned large capacity ammunition feeding devices are not common, even though they're common.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was them.
Yes, that was absolutely them.
And that they were only introduced by the U.S. military in World War II. I don't know if that was also them, but
yes, it was.
I think we talked about it in the last episode.
Yeah, I think we did.
Because I remember doing something like Girondoni air rifle says what?
Yes, I did hear that. I think that was that the last episode or the episode before? It doesn't matter. But yes, I think I remember hearing that. But it was like, yeah. But for a lot of these folks, history started at worst last year, at best on 9/11.
So, speaking of Giffords and Everytown and Bloomberg, Weird.
Yes.
No, that was me pitching it to you because I figured this was going to be your pet bugbear.
Yes, it is. That essentially, this article here is looking at the very, very convoluted way that Everytown is funding itself, and yeah, they're doing a lot of back and forth. I mean, is this just straight up money laundering?
You're tired, I can tell. All right, so
I am.
As a result of all of the things that Doge is doing, and we're going to set aside whether that's good or bad, because we have listeners on both sides of the political aisle. But one thing that they have found, and then their discovery has been put online by other people. There's a page called Data Republican, and I know that name's going to turn people off, but it offers basically a flowchart of where the money is coming from. And so all these quote unquote grassroots gun control groups are getting paid, and they're getting paid by the federal government through USAID, and they're getting paid through it's complicated. Just look at it. But the short version is that as taxpayers, we have been funding efforts to restrict our own rights. And if this ends, and I have to say that's an if, because I'm cynical and I've been disappointed too many times. I won't think that this is gone until I see like the charred, smoldering corpse of Giffords in Everytown and the Trace and things like that. You know, only when I can see that they're dead will I say, okay, yes, good, it's gone. But
Mhm.
but a lot of people are seeing this and they're getting outraged, and as well they should be. And so maybe this is exposing the soft underbelly of the gun prohibition movement.
Well, it's also a kind of an ongoing theme because I mean I've covered it like many times. Is that groups, especially it's even best when it's Everytown or its affiliate groups, complaining about the Dickey Amendment that essentially says that look, you can't be using the CDC. This is all started by Kellerman, which was my last FISC. You can't be using the CDC to fund gun control. You can absolutely research gun violence.
They can do as many studies as they want, but they can't.
You can look for solutions, but you can't be doing it for outright propaganda for a political campaign. And they're just all butthurt about it. And it's one of those like, you guys have Michael Bloomberg, and there's a lot of information that's just showing that even the non-Michael Bloomberg affiliated gun control groups are affiliated with Michael Bloomberg, and Michael Bloomberg bought a school. There's the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of
journalism.
No, it's public health.
Oh, didn't he also buy a journalism school?
He may have. Well, no, he's got. I mean, he's got the Bloomberg News.
I just want to point out that Bloomberg has a net worth of about $106 billion. He doesn't need federal funding for this.
Yeah,
No.
Well, and he openly brags
because people get rich by not passing up a chance for more money.
Yeah, he's got like a whole like charitable thing with like a bunch of things. Like he's good friends with Warren Buffett and all that, and they like all are like competing for various charities because he's like, we can't spend this all. We have so much like when you are at that level of rich, like it's unsurmountable amounts of money. And he is, and yet they're all upset that they can't tap into taxpayer money to fund these studies. And now it's turning out that like, even though this is like Michael Bloomberg's pet project, even though he's really been distancing himself a lot, he still needs the taxpayers to be chipping in. Yeah. But well, and cutting this out is also another is I do have suspicions that Michael Bloomberg may have provisions of what happens to his money after he passes. I don't necessarily know if he's going to be working very hard to keep all these anti-gun groups going after he passes. And furthermore, even if he does do a really, really good job at creating like an endowment for them, I wonder if they'll just eat it up. So either way, that's a story for another day.
Yeah.
But speaking of people who eat it up,
people who consume this show voraciously,
consume mass quantities.
Yes. Fried eggs and beer. The Coneheads where they were giving the trick-or-treaters fried eggs and beer. Yes, that's our listeners. We got to thank our listeners. Thank you so much for listening to this show. We really do appreciate it. But we got to give a special thanks to our supporters on Patreon. We talked about it a little earlier, but become a Patreon patron. Go to patreon.com/Assorted Calibers Podcast to sign up. And again, that is where we sell bonus stuff. We sell early release of the podcast, blooper reels, ACB film tracks, and the ACB Magnet.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts and Pocket Casts, subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends, both online and off.
I got a blog. It's weirdworlds.com. That's WEERDworld.com. And hear me weekly on Handgun Radio on the Firearms Radio Network.
And you can hear more from me at Linktree/Erin Paulette. That's linktree.ee/Erin Paulette, all one word.
David, where can people find you?
Well, right here regularly. I'm also a frequent guest on Handgun Radio. And I am a regular contributor to Blue Collar Prepping, which is found at bluecollarprepping.blogspot.com. And I'm also a published author with books with my stories on Amazon under David Bach and Brenna Bach. I also haunt the ACP Facebook page.
Oddball, where can people find you?
I have a blog at gunscarstech.com, and I also am a regular over at Handgun Radio and can be found lurking on the both the Assorted Calibers podcast and the Handgun Radio Facebook group.
And where can people retain your services as a lawyer?
On Google.
Nowhere, but but I want video of any time you say, well, this guy named Oddball told me I could do it to a judge.
That would be good. The Oddball said it was okay defense.
Right?
and then suddenly Oddball will come into the court with dark sunglasses and a black trench coat.
Oddball will come through the wall of the court yelling, "Oh
yes.
yeah!"
And I will say, Your Honor, tell him he's wrong. And thanks to Nate Spencer for our music.
Yeah, so this is normally the time when I come up with a little zinger, and that's really hard to do for roundtables and podcasts. So instead, I'm just going to tell you something which I think is neat, because we talked about the Shush Act, and we mentioned that it's an acronym. And so an acronym is a word that's formed when you put them together. And an initialism is when you pronounce the individual letters. So, shush is an acronym, but NASA is an acronym, but the CIA, the FBI, that's an initialism. The more you know.
And it's completely undecided on whether the Fabergé Nationale rifle that was the right arm of the free world is an acronym or an initialism. I say FAL.
Or is it the FAL? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, Ian says FAL.
I use both, just like silencer and suppressor.
Mm-hmm.
It's an effing FAL, and so's our podcast. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, folks.